December 11, 2008. 7:14 a.m. A knock at the door. Not the front desk, not the lobby phone, the door. You look through the peephole. Your 2 sons are standing there. Mark, Andrew, they flew in last night. You knew they would, because last night, for the first time in 40 years, you told them the truth. You opened the door. Nobody speaks. Behind them, 2 men in dark coats, badges, federal agents. One of them says your name like a question. Bernie Madoff? You say yes. You already know what comes next. You've been running the numbers in your head since 1992. The number is $65 billion. The number of people, 4,800. The game didn't end here. It ended the moment you started it. Go back, go all the way back. Queens, New York, 1950. You are 12 years old, and you already understand one thing most people never learn. Perception is reality. Your father is a plumber, not a bad man, not a rich man. You watch him work with his hands, and you decide. Quietly, privately, the way 12-year-olds make the decisions that shape their entire lives, that you will use your head instead. You are not the smartest person in any room you enter. You know this about yourself, but you are the most convincing. There is a difference. The smart man explains why something works. You make people feel why it must work. At 17, you take a job as a lifeguard at Rockaway Beach. You save money, not to spend it, to move it. By 22, you have $5,000. In 1960, $5,000 is not nothing. You start a company, Bernie Madoff Investment Securities. You are barely old enough to rent a car. And here is what you know from day one. The thing the textbooks won't tell you. Wall Street is not a meritocracy. It is a club, and the club has a door. And the door has a face recognition system that only opens for certain kinds of people. You are not one of those people, not yet. So you build a side door. You take trades the big firms won't touch, the penny stocks, the small orders, the scraps from the table. You build technology when technology is still a dirty word on trading floors. You route orders electronically before anyone else sees why that matters. By the time they understand what you built, you are already indispensable. By 1970, you are not knocking on any doors. People are coming to you. You never wanted to be the richest man in the room. You wanted to be the one the richest men in the room trusted most. Those are 2 very different ambitions, and one of them is far more dangerous. Here is what the record says happened. Here is what actually happened inside your head. The year is 1990, maybe 1987, maybe earlier. You will never be fully clear on this, even to yourself. The first step is never a decision. It's a convenience. A client, one of your earliest, most loyal, is unhappy. Markets are volatile. His statement shows a loss. He doesn't want a loss. He has told other people you are managing his money, and those people have expectations. You could explain the markets. You could sit down and have the honest conversation. Instead, you make a small adjustment. Numbers shuffled. A return that didn't quite happen, shown as if it did. Temporary. You tell yourself it is temporary. The client is satisfied. Nobody asks questions. Nobody asks questions. This is the sentence you file away. This is the sentence you will build an empire on. Here is the internal logic, and it is logic, at least the way you hear it. Markets are inefficient. You have information and relationships that others don't. your strategy. The split strike conversion, buying blue chips and hedging with options, genuinely works. You have been generating real returns. You are simply smoothing the volatility, showing people the destination without subjecting them to the turbulence of the journey. You are not stealing. You are managing expectations. The first time the full arrangement works, the first time a major client reinvests based on returns that exist only in your accounting, you feel something unexpected. Not guilt, not fear, relief. Because now you understand the architecture, the way it clicks together. Inflows cover outflows. New clients cover old redemptions. As long as the money keeps coming in, the system breathes. It does not merely survive, it grows. You name the arrangement in your mind the way only you ever will. The business, not a scheme, not a trap, the business. But somewhere in 1992, a specific afternoon you remember, but will never describe in court. You sit alone with a yellow legal pad, and you do the arithmetic. You write a number. You stare at it. You fold the paper in half, then in half again. That is the moment. Not the first adjustment in 1987 or 1990, or whenever it began. This is the moment. The moment you understand that the gap between what you owe and what you have can no longer be closed by any trade, any strategy, any market condition in human history. You fold the paper. You put it in your coat pocket. You walk back to your desk. And you keep going. By the 1990s, you are not merely successful. You are architecture. You are on the board of NASDAQ. Not once, 3 times. You are chairman. The regulatory bodies don't audit you. They consult you. You help write the rules that govern markets in which you operate. Think about that for a moment. Let it sit. The men who should be watching you are asking you what to watch for. Your offices on the 17th floor of the Lipstick Building are immaculate. Navy blue carpet. No clutter. No noise. A place where serious things happen quietly. You don't tolerate disorder. You don't tolerate questions. Not because you are arrogant. You are never visibly arrogant, but because you have built a universe with its own physics. And loose questions are the kind of thing that exposes the seams. The 17th floor is legitimate. Trading, technology, real business. The 19th floor is something else. A handful of employees who have worked for you so long, they've stopped being curious. Frank DiPascali, your right hand for the operation, who understands the system because he built it alongside you. You keep the floors separate. Physically. Psychologically, your clients are not ordinary clients. They are country clubs and hedge funds, charitable foundations and Holocaust survivors, Hollywood producers and European banks. Elie Wiesel's foundation, Steven Spielberg's charity. They don't ask how you do it. They see the returns, steady, almost perfectly consistent, 10 to 12% year after year, through crashes and corrections and the chaos of 2001. And they stop asking the question that should be louder than any other question on Wall Street. Why is nobody else doing this? Instead, they feel lucky. They feel chosen. Access to your fund is limited, exclusive. You don't advertise. You don't take everyone who asks. The waiting list is real because you make it real. Because exclusivity is oxygen to the kind of wealth that already has everything else. You look at these people. Good people. Most of them. People who worked hard. People who trusted. and you do not feel contempt. That would be easier to explain. What you feel is closer to a complicated, almost paternal protectiveness. They want to believe. You give them the thing they want. The first serious doubt comes from outside. The year 2000, a financial analyst named Harry Markopoulos submits a report to the SEC. The title is unambiguous. The world's largest hedge fund is a fraud. He has the mathematics. He has the logic. The returns you claim are statistically impossible. The SEC investigates. The SEC closes the investigation. You exhale. You take it as confirmation. Not that you are safe. You know you are never safe. But that the architecture holds. That the world, fundamentally, does not want to see what is in front of it. After the SEC clears you, you expand. You bring in more money than ever, as if the exoneration was endorsement. You know better. You do it anyway. 2005. Markopoulos goes back to the SEC. Third submission, more detailed, more damning. That night, you don't sleep. Not because of Markopoulos. You have survived him before. But because the number on that folded yellow legal pad from 1992 has been compounding. By now, it is not a gap. It is a chasm. $17 billion of actual assets. $65 billion on paper. You lie in the dark of your penthouse apartment, and you do what you always do alone. You calculate. You need inflows to stay ahead of the redemptions. As long as markets feel good, people don't redeem. As long as people don't redeem, the architecture breathes. But 2005 is not 2000. The market is starting to show the kind of stress that sends nervous money running for the exits. You start recruiting harder. Your network expands. Feeder funds managed by people who never ask the right questions because they are making too much money not to. Bring you billions from Europe, from the Middle East, from South America. The desperation is invisible because you have always been composed. That composure, the navy suit, the steady voice, the unhurried handshake, is now the most important thing you own. More important than the money. Because the composure is the money. Now, the returns are credible. Because you are credible. You are the instrument. 2007. The housing market begins its unraveling. You watch it from a distance that is not nearly far enough. You call a meeting, not with lawyers, not with compliance, with Frank on the 19th floor. Door closed. You run the numbers together. You already know the numbers. You just want someone else in the room. When you hear them out loud, the redemption requests are accelerating. Your inflows are not keeping pace. For the first time in 20 years, you begin to seriously model the exit, not escape. There is no escape, and you have always known this. The exit. The controlled unwinding, a way to make it stop before it stops you. You spend 3 weeks designing a scenario where you distribute whatever remains, absorb the consequences, and end it on your terms. You do not execute it, because ending it means admitting it existed, and after 40 years, you do not know who you are without the architecture. Then 2008 arrives, not slowly, all at once. Lehman Brothers, September 15th. The entire financial system begins to seize. Your phone starts ringing with redemption requests, not trickles, floods. $7 billion in withdrawals in the first weeks of November alone. You have $1.3 billion in your account. You look at Frank. Frank looks at you. You both know the number. November. You call your sons into a meeting. not to the 19th floor, to your apartment. You sit them down. You start to speak. For the first time in 4 decades, you do not know how the sentence ends before you begin it. December 10, 2008. You wake at 5 a.m. You don't know why. You just do. Ruth is asleep. You lie still for 11 minutes. You count them. And then you get up. You make coffee. You stand at the window of your Upper East Side apartment and look at the city that made you. The light is just starting to come. Gray and specific. The kind of light that reveals the edges of things. The night before, you told your sons everything. In your apartment, in the living room, on the couch where your grandchildren sit when they visit. You said, "It's all one big lie." Mark said nothing. Andrew said nothing. Then they left. You knew what they would do. You raised them to do it. They are honest men. That is, in some sideways way, your doing, your one uncorrupted legacy. You go to the office that morning anyway, because you have gone to the office every morning for 48 years, and you do not know what else to do with your body. You sit at your desk. You sign a few things. At 8:30 a.m. you return home. At 10 a.m. the door, the knock, your sons, the agents. The agent's name is Theodore Cassioppi. He is calm. He is professional. He asks if there is an innocent explanation for what has been described to him. You look at him for a moment. There is no innocent explanation. You say it simply, directly, the way you have always spoken when the performance is finally over, and there is nothing left to perform. They handcuff you in your apartment. You are wearing a gray sweater, not a suit. You did not dress for this, which feels significant in a way you cannot articulate. Ruth watches from across the room. She does not speak. You do not look at her for long because you cannot. The first thought you have, not about yourself, not about prison, not about the sentence that will come, is about the list of names, 4,800 clients, people who sent you their life savings, people who named you in their wills, people who introduced you to their children, so their children could also give you their money. Elie Wiesel, who survived things no one should survive, and then handed you his foundation's savings and trusted you. That is the first thought. Not remorse, exactly. Something harder to name. Something that has no clean word in any language. They walk you out of the building. You do not cover your face. You do not look at the cameras. You walk the way you have always walked. Straight, measured, unhurried. The game is over. You already knew. You have always known. You just kept walking. Butner Federal Correctional Complex, North Carolina. You are 70 years old. You will be here until you are 220. That is what 150 years means in practice. You sit in a prison interview, and a journalist asks, "Do you think the sentence was fair?" You pause. You say, "I carried it alone for 20 years. I thought that counted for something. It didn't." What do you regret most? The journalist presses. The real answer, not the prepared one. You are quiet for a long time then. The list, not the arrangement itself, not the lie, not the life you built on architecture that was always going to collapse. What breaks through, finally, is the list, the specific weight of 4,800 names, the Wiesel Foundation that lost $15 million, the retiree in Florida who gave you her entire savings because her husband trusted you and her husband was dead. the charities that no longer exist. You say, I thought I could fix it before it ended. I thought markets would turn. I thought there would be a window. There was no window. How do you see the victims? Another pause, longer this time. I don't let myself. A beat. That's the honest answer. I don't let myself see them clearly because I would not be able to function if I did. This is not a confession. It is not an apology. It is simply true. If you could do it again, would you have done anything differently? You look at the ceiling. I would have stopped in 1992. Not I would never have started. Not a wholesale rejection of who you were and what you built. Just, I would have stopped when I still had a chance to stop. In 2021, you are transferred to the medical unit. Kidney disease, late stage. On April 14, 2021, at 82 years old, you die in federal custody. Your sentence was 150 years. You served 13. No one is waiting outside, and that is what Bernie Madoff lived through. As for us, we sit here and ask a harder question than whether one man was evil. How did a system the entire world trusted allow this to happen for 40 years? The SEC received credible, mathematically airtight reports from Harry Markopolos in 1999, 2001, and 2005. Markopolos handed investigators a 29-page document called "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud." He laid out 19 red flags. He showed his work. The SEC never ran a single forensic audit. 3 separate investigations. No forensic audit. Why? Because Madoff was not just a client of the system. He was the system. He helped build the regulatory framework. His reputation was the credential that made further investigation feel unnecessary. In finance, as in most human systems, status is a kind of inoculation. The psychology has a name: authority bias. When someone holds enough institutional power, we reverse the burden of proof. We don't ask, prove you are legitimate. We ask, prove you are not. And the two questions are not the same. There is something else worth naming. Something we rarely say out loud. Madoff's investors wanted to believe, not because they were foolish, many were highly sophisticated, but because the returns felt like access, like being chosen. The emotional reward of exclusivity is one of the most powerful cognitive overrides known to behavioral economics. It doesn't matter how smart you are. The feeling of being on the inside is its own confirmation bias. 48 years, 4,800 victims, $65 billion. Not all real money, but real damage. $17 billion in actual principal lost. Pensions wiped. Charities dissolved. Families fractured. The largest Ponzi scheme in recorded history. And the first domino was not greed. It was a small adjustment, a temporary convenience, a number smoothed for a client who didn't want to see a loss. One domino, 40 years. Here is the question I'll leave you with. Markopolos told the truth clearly and repeatedly. The SEC had everything it needed. So why did no one act? Is this a failure of process, of incentive, of psychology, or something about the way we are all, in our own ways, invested in not seeing what is directly in front of us? Leave your answer in the comments. I want to know what you think. Elizabeth Holmes, you believed in something so completely that you convinced an entire industry to believe it too, right up until the machine did.